You're welcome.
In a small town living rough, times were hard and life was tough. On the porch we'd find our peace, talking about the land of the free. Stars and stripes in the sky, blue and red lines standing high. But beneath the freedom's call lies the story of us all. A conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. The roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies and tears that fill our eyes. Thunderstorms and desert plains, echoes of our joys and pains. From the heartland to the coast, it's the simple things we toast. A conversation with the Mutts, just a whisper in our thoughts, talking about the dreams we chase in this vast American space. Roads we walk, they're cracked and dry, still we look up at the sky with hope that never dies and tears that fill our eyes. They're fast American space.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another conversation with the Mutts. I'm Mutt.
And I am Mrs. Mutt.
And tonight we are going to have a discussion about the U.S.S. Wisconsin. And yes, there is quite a bit out there about her. There are quite a few things that I didn't know.
There was a good bit I didn't know, and I got not only about her in specifically, but her predecessor and a few bits just in general.
You want to go ahead and...
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the compliment on the music mag, and school is about to be in session.
Yeah. Welcome to school, Mac. You did say last week that this was like a private school education. Well, tonight we're going to have a conversation about the U.S.S. Wisconsin.
First of all, did you know why ships are certain colors?
The haze gray and underway?
Well, did you know why the warships are gray?
Yeah, it makes them harder to see.
Right. The gray color reduces the contrast of the ships with the horizon and reduces the vertical patterns of the ship's appearance. It's the universal color of combatant and auxiliary surface ships in contrast to the dark gray or black color of submarines, the bright colors of ceremonial vessels and aircraft, or the white of hospital ships and some Coast Guard colors.
Yep.
Now, do you know why the subs are black?
That I don't know.
These are black because black reflects the least amount of light and therefore camouflages it the best when it is surfaced, partially submerged, or near the surface.
Ah.
Generally, most of the submarines are painted full black. Some countries paint their submarines in two colors. The top part of the submarine is painted black, and the bottom part of the submarine is painted orange. And also, some of the small submarines are painted green.
I believe our naval vessels, the submarines, are painted all black. I believe.
That wouldn't surprise me.
I believe they are. I had I call her my foster sister. Her husband was a bubblehead, a Submariner. Yes, Greg, if you actually ever hear this, yes, I just called you a bubblehead. Love you, bro. And I believe he told me that all the submarines for the U.S. Navy were painted black.
Did you happen to get anything on the BB-9?
The BB-9, the predecessor to the
Yes, the original
47?
U.S.S. Wisconsin.
What is it? The predecessor? Yeah, the predecessor. No, I didn't get anything on the BB-9.
It was actually part of what they call the Great White Fleet. Are you familiar with that?
No, I am not. I am less familiar about the Navy, even though I live in a Navy town, than I am about the Army.
The Great White Fleet really only sailed for 2 years, from 1907 to 1909. It was a fleet of U.S. Navy ships that sailed around the world for the purpose of displaying the naval power of the U.S. The hulls of the ships were painted white because the ships were on a peace mission, hence Great White Fleet.
Right.
And it demonstrated the capabilities of the U.S. Navy and indicated the necessity of having supply stations available around the world.
Nice. And I will take you up on that, Mac, because I cannot stand dealing with chalkboards. So yes, you clean the chalkboards and you can consider it paid.
Now, there were actually,
damn it.
My notes closed out.
Ah.
Not closed, well, they closed
Well,
out, but
I can say that the Iowa class I'll let me just jump in here while you're pulling that back up. That the Iowa class battleship that we are discussing tonight, known as the Wisconsin, the BB-64, was built at the Philadelphia shipyards in Pennsylvania and was commissioned on April, I don't remember what the actual date was, April of 1944. And I will say that she was, while she was commissioned in April of 44, she was, I won't say, I believe she took her maiden voyage in December 7th of the year prior. So exactly 2 years to the day of Pearl Harbor.
Actually, go back to the Iowa class battleships. They had planned on 6 of them.
Right.
Only 4 were actually built.
Right.
The Iowa, the New Jersey, the Missouri, and the 4th and final, the Wisconsin.
The Wisconsin, yeah.
They were named the Iowa class because the U.S.S. Iowa was the first of the class to be built.
Yep.
They were intended at first to be very fast ships, almost battle cruisers, to intercept, the Japanese Congo class while still able to keep their place in the battle line. The Iowa class were also designed to meet the Second London Naval Treaty's escalator clause, reaching the limit up to 45,000 long ton of standard displacement. Ultimately, only the first 4 were completed, like I said, while the U.S.S. Illinois and the Kentucky were laid down but canceled in 45 and 58 and scrapped.
The Kentucky actually is part of the Wisconsin.
Right,
we'll
get into that.
Yeah, well, they use the bow of the Kentucky.
Ultimately, the new Montana class was preferred and then canceled in July of 43 in favor of completing the Essex class fleet carriers as the last battleship class ever designed for the U.S. Navy.
Yeah. I do have a few numbers if you're interested.
Okay.
The Wisconsin displaces This is an incredible number here. 52,000 tons of water at full load.
I have now, just to give you an idea.
Yep.
I have the U.S.S. Iowa 1943 specifications if you want to compare.
Okay.
The Iowa fully loaded displaces 57,540 tons.
That is insane. That's an insane amount of water.
So it's
For
actually, I would have thought the Wisconsin would have been bigger, but it actually
The Iowa.
displaces more.
And I've actually seen the Iowa up close, and just, I was. You say you were jaw dropped when you saw the Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I was jaw dropped when I saw the Iowa. I got to admit. The Wisconsin is 880 feet long. Her beam is 108 feet, and her draft is at 36. Did the faceless roommate ever clarify what they mean by the beam? I believe that was the center mast of the ship, was it not?
What was before the beam?
She was 880 feet long.
All right, hold on. What was the first measurement?
Her length, which was 880
Okay.
feet.
And then it was
The beam, and then it was the draft. The draft is 36 feet.
beam was the width
The width of the ship.
of her hull.
The width of her hull. Okay. Now, I will say that she had some impressive armaments. The battery information. The Wisconsin's main battery had 9.
We didn't get a keel measurement, believe it or not, Matt.
Yeah, we did not get the keel measurement. The main battery had 9 16-inch guns firing shells weighing 1 ton apiece.
Now, give me just a second, because if you go into Nauticus, there was a rumor I had heard before I went into Nauticus.
Now, what is Nauticus? You need to explain.
Nauticus is the nautical museum,
Which is
where the Wisconsin is birthed. Where
correct.
You can walk the
Well,
deck.
I knew this, and you knew
Right,
this,
but they
those listening
didn't.
did not.
Right, those not from the area.
Right.
I had heard before going into Nauticus that the Wisconsin lobbed shells the size of a beetle. Or not, of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
So, and I know when I went in there, they actually have hanging from a ceiling a shell and a Volkswagen Beetle balanced hanging from the ceiling.
So they weigh the exact same.
No, I actually went and looked just based on a couple of different years. I picked up a couple of different years.
Okay. And then I'll go back to the battery information.
So, a 1975 Volkswagen Beetle. I picked that year just because I knew that the Wisconsin was involved with Vietnam.
Yes.
The Volkswagen.
No, wait, no.
Yes.
Korea.
It was involved in Korea and Vietnam.
I don't recall them.
In my research, yes.
Okay.
A 1975 Volkswagen Beetle weighed 1,830 pounds.
So the Beetle would have been lighter than the shell.
A 2024 Beetle Just for contrast,
Yeah.
just short of 3,000 pounds.
So it would have been more.
Now, those nine 16-inch 50 caliber guns
Yeah.
in the 3 gun turrets,
Yeah.
those have a range of 23 miles.
Yes.
Those are armor-piercing projectiles,
Correct.
2,700 pounds.
Yep.
The high capacity are 1,900 pounds.
Yeah, they threw some armament.
Yes.
And that comes into play a little later when during the invasion of Japan. The secondary battery is 25-inch guns. They had 25-inch guns on that. The anti-air, they had 125. Initially, this is the initial numbers. The numbers have been reduced since then over time, but the initial numbers were 125 40 millimeter and 20 millimeter guns, and it's credited with speeds of above 30 knots, which works out to 35 miles per hour. The Wisconsin was only actually ever struck once during a conflict. The U.S.S. Wisconsin was hit by a 155 millimeter gun battery on March 15th of 1952 while destroying a North Korean train and tunnel. The shell struck the shield of a 40 millimeter gun mount on the starboard side of the ship, lightly wounding the 3 sailors manning the gun and causing only minor damage. In response, the Wisconsin's crew fired a salvo from the 16-inch main battery, destroying the artillery piece and surrounding area of land. Yeah, you don't, as the fat electrician says, and pardon my language, but you don't fuck with our ships.
Now, that may have been when she was damaged in battle.
Yes, that was the only time she was ever struck in battle.
Right. But that was not the only time she was ever damaged.
No. And I did say that it was the only time she was ever struck in a conflict.
Now, on May 6th of 1956.
So 4 years later.
1956.
So 4 years later. Because.
Okay, so that was 1952 that happened? Okay,
yes.
I didn't hear the year. I apologize.
Yes.
She actually collided with the destroyer, the U.S.S. Eaton, or the DDE 510, in a heavy fog off the Virginia Cape. The Wisconsin put into Norfolk with extensive damage to her bow, and 1 week later entered dry dock at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard.
And there are pictures of that damage.
Yes. One of the things you all might find interesting that aren't from this area. The Norfolk Naval Shipyard is actually located in Portsmouth, Virginia.
Yes.
But because there's a Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in New Hampshire,
yes, there is.
They can't have 2 Portsmouth Naval Shipyards, so it has to be called Norfolk Naval Shipyard.
Yes.
So again, she dry docked in the Norfolk Naval Shipyard.
Little side note: the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in New Hampshire fits submarines.
Ah.
My ex-father-in-law used to work there.
Okay.
So, yes, they fit subs.
Okay. Well, a 120-ton, 68 4-foot-long section of the bow of the uncompleted battleship Kentucky was used to replace Wisconsin's damaged bow. Since the Kentucky lacked the famed bull nose of the Wisconsin, her original bull nose was recovered from the damaged portion of the bow and placed on top of the Kentucky portion. Wisconsin was ready for service 16 days later. That said, on June 28th, so more than that 16 days, well, no, pardon me. On June 28th, she was ready to return to sea, but she actually didn't do so until March 8th of 1958, when she again joined the U.S. Navy's Reserve Fleet.
Yes.
This is interesting, though. The research that I came across actually said they wondered if the crew of the 1940s had an inclination that something like this would happen, because they actually began with nicknaming the Wisconsin with a nickname for the Wisconsin of the whiskey.
The whiskey. Yep, because of Kentucky. Yep.
No, this was before. This
I know.
was the 1940s.
I'm saying the premonition or the foreshadowing.
But you came up with why they called it the whiskey in the 40s.
I did. The reason that they called it the whiskey was because they found serving aboard the old girl was just so intoxicating. Now, you ever wondered why they called battleships floating cities?
I just figured because it was so big. And
think about the number of people aboard the ship. Okay, we're going to go over some crew numbers here. The U.S.S. Wisconsin was designed to have a crew of 117 officers and 1,804 enlisted. However, crew levels fluctuated over the ship's history. During World War II, crew levels increased to 189 officers and 2,789 enlisted by the end of the war in 1940.
I actually got a quote here that during World War II, they had a crew of almost 3,000 men aboard.
Yeah, well, you figure.
And that put the ship well over their 1,900 person capacity.
Yeah. During the Korean War, crew levels decreased to 151 officers and 2,255 men. The 1980s modernization crew levels decreased further to 65 officers and 1,450 enlisted. So yeah, you're talking at the bare minimum. You're talking what, almost a little over 1,500 people. That's a small Iowa town, isn't it?
How many?
Well, after the modernization in the 80s, the crew was decreased to 65 officers and 1,450 enlisted.
That's actually that's a decent size Iowa town. There are plenty of Iowa towns that are just a few hundred.
Now you know why they call them floating cities. Now, I don't know how many of you know what a battle star is, but and I will tell you what they are for reference. The U.S. Navy, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. The U.S. Navy has awarded battle stars to ships for meritorious participation in particular battles, as well as sustaining damage during a battle. Battlestar is also a term used to refer to decorations issued by the U.S. Navy during World War II and the Korean War to individual ships recognizing a vessel's participation. Now, the reason I gave that definition was because the whiskey, aka the Wisconsin, was issued 5 battle stars. She had
they were for World War II alone, weren't they?
No, they weren't. 4, I believe. It didn't break it down, but let me rephrase that. It broke it down. I just didn't copy it down. But I believe that 4 of them were for World War II, and then there was a 5th for Korea, I believe. The whiskey is credited with having shot down 3 enemy aircraft and assisting in at least 4 others.
In Japan.
On the attack in Japan.
In addition, she survived 2 typhoons.
Yep.
Off the coast of Japan.
That's crazy. I did not. That's the one thing I didn't get was
I didn't get the names of the typhoons.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about how the battle stars were broken down. I meant to get that, and I didn't. That's an oversight on my part. She also participated. Her last major conflict that she participated in was during Desert Storm, before she was decommissioned and sent here to become the museum that is now known as the Nauticus. So she has had quite the extensive career. In fact, she was decommissioned 3 separate times, I believe.
That's what I have.
Yeah,
but if you're saying she served in Desert Storm, I didn't get Desert Storm.
Yep, she served briefly in Desert Storm. So she. Yep. I know the Isle was over. I know that the Isle was in Desert Storm because I believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, that's where one of the gun turrets exploded. Was during Desert Storm. But I may be wrong about that.
I have that the Iowa class battleships. Those 4 were the last battleships ever commissioned by the Navy.
Yep.
They had a short but eventful career in the Pacific in 44 and 45, protecting the fast carrier task force, during the last phases of the island hopping campaign until the surrender signed on the Mighty Mo,
the Missouri,
decommissioned in 1947 in long-term reserve.
I know that
on July 1st, Wisconsin was assigned to the Norfolk Group U.S. Atlantic Reserve Fleet for first decommissioning. They were recommissioned for Korea and Vietnam. Between Korea and Vietnam, she acted as a training ship and flagship and took part in various exercises.
I know that during World War II, she also took part in liberating Iwo Jima and the Philippine Islands.
Little side note.
Okay.
If the book is to be believed, because now the author is in doubt, but if the author was correct at the time of the writing, the last surviving member of the soldiers raising the flag, which was the second flag raising, by the way, at Iwo Jima, that was made into the monument, was from Appleton, Wisconsin.
Appleton, Wisconsin?
Yes. Let's see.
Wait. I'm reading Max saw the
North Carolina
battleship in Wilmington. in Wilmington. Would that be the USS Wilmington that you saw? I know it was back in the 60s, you said.
Or is there one called the U.S.S. North Carolina?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if that's what he's saying or not.
I don't know. They decommissioned her for the second time in March of 1958.
Right.
They completely modernized her in the 1980s and then she became a missile carrying battleship with quite amazing alternative projects. That's what it says was projects.
Or projectiles.
That's what I was thinking. And that is fighting in 4 major U.S. wars.
Okay. I know that they took some of the 20, I believe it was some of the 20-inch guns and replaced them with, what was it, harpoon missiles and
that was, now it says here that on August 1st of 1986, which was just before she underwent the modernizations and was recommissioned, she was reactivated as part of President Ronald Reagan and Navy Secretary John F. Lehman's attempt to create a 600-ship Navy. Over the course of the war, both the Wisconsin and the Missouri fired more than 1 million pounds of ordnance on Iraqi targets.
Damn.
With the end of the conflict, all 4 of the Iowa-class battleships were decommissioned. She specifically, on September 30th, September 30th was decommissioned for the 3rd time at Norfolk Naval Base, Virginia, and then towed to the Philadelphia Naval Yard. On December 7th of 2000, the U.S.S. Wisconsin arrived at her new home at the National Maritime Center, Nauticus, in Norfolk, Virginia.
Now, I do have a few unusual facts about the old girl.
Okay.
Now,
this Max, hold on. Max is here to own. Gave some. It was a. Looks like it was a battleship in North Carolina.
Okay.
You might be able to read it better. I've got a heart in the way.
Okay. I'm not. I'm actually over on my notes.
Okay.
Probably it might have been in North Carolina. Now I know that this first fact would drive our current administration crazy because you know how they want us to go EV, the electronic vehicles, and get away from gasoline and diesel fuels. But
trust me, you do not want this mileage on your car.
You do not. No, this
would make the Hummer drivers. This would make the operators of the U.S.S. Wisconsin would be envious of your worst Hummer drivers.
100%. Yeah. The Wisconsin carries about 2.3 million gallons of diesel fuel, which it consumes at a rate of 15 feet per gallon. So for every 15 feet she goes, she's burning up a gallon. That is insane numbers.
So our driveway would kill about 2 gallons.
Yeah, probably. Her nickname, the whiskey, because they found duty, as I said earlier, so intoxicating. Here's one that I found highly amusing. Now, I did mention the Wisconsin or the Iowa, excuse me. I did mention the Iowa earlier. Little known fact about the Iowa, she was the only battleship to have a bathtub for FDR. Well, that may be the case, but I think the men of the Iowa would probably be jealous of the Wisconsin because the Wisconsin had the only onboard. ice cream shop.
Gotta support the dairy state.
I guess that's the case. I guess that's what it was.
Which I found when we were talking about that a little bit, since you brought that up, they actually had in the menu in the World War II cookbook for the United States Navy, they actually said that ice cream should be on a quote unquote regular, should be a quote unquote regular on the Navy menu. They gave them vanilla flavored tablets and directions how to use that to make ice cream, including instructions on how to use that to make other flavors. And I mean, just to make the vanilla, to make 5 gallons of vanilla, you would use, let's see, 9 pounds of the dry mix.
Oh my Lord.
And 1 3/4 gallons of the cold water.
Wow.
And then some of the variations, you not only had your chocolate
and your vanilla,
but apricot,
ooh,
coffee, which sounds really good, date nut, grape, pineapple grape. Of course, you had your strawberry, pistachio, maple nut, or just walnut, peach, banana nut. Here's one for you, baby. Cherry.
Hey. For those of you who don't know, I detest artificial strawberry, but I absolutely love almost anything that has cherry in it.
Well, the only thing strawberry about your cherry is strawberry red coloring.
Okay.
But it takes a half of a number 10 can, which is 3 pounds, 6 ounces, or 2 quarts of crushed cherries.
Hey, plenty of cherry in it. Can't beat that. Would you like a few more of the unusual facts?
Of course.
Now,
but you know us, we always have to bring it back to food somehow.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Now, some say, now this is for you, those of you who listen to this later and are into the paranormal thing. I know not everyone is, but this I kind of ran across this, so I figured I'd add it for for those who are into the paranormal stuff. Some say that the U.S.S. Wisconsin, an Iowa-class battleship, as we have discussed, featured at Nauticus in Norfolk, is actually haunted. Local lore suggests that the ship is haunted by a crew member who died in 1951 while fixing the air conditioning system during the Korean War. Visitors have reported feeling watched and seeing white mists that may be manifestations of the crewman's spirit. Amateur footage captured in 2013 also seems to show paranormal activity, including noises after the lights are turned off. Nauticus has even developed a haunted tour based on these hotspots. I kind of, like I said, I ran across that, and I know that there are some who are really into the paranormal thing, so I just added that little blurb in there for you. Now, you know how the current Republican leading candidate is prone to saying fake news, right? Well, hold on, let me find it here. I got ahead of myself. The Wisconsin hosted some.
Hello, Billy Beans.
In 1944, Hitler, or actually the same week that the ship was commissioned, Hitler had put out in his newspaper that the Wisconsin had already been sunk and it hadn't even left the dry dock. So I kind of found that a little bit, found that a little amusing. It hadn't even left dry dock, and yet here it is already sunk. It was launched exactly 2 years, like I believe we covered this earlier, after Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1943. That was when she was actually launched. Okay, here we are. It was, I'm going to go ahead and read it verbatim from the U.S.military.com, or U.S.militarynews.com, historynews.com, I believe is the title of the website that I got this from. It was the focus of Nazi air fake news. And yes, ladies and gentlemen,
careful, you've got a little gray kitty head for your.
No, you do not get my lemon water.
I'm also worried about your keyboard.
Yes. Okay, when it was finally commissioned on August 16th, 1944, the ship made a few headlines. Yet months earlier, it had been the object of Adolf Hitler's propaganda machine. On December 10th, 1943, so I was wrong about the date. Sorry about that, folks. Just 3 days after the still incomplete Wisconsin slid down the gangway, Berlin radio declared that the vessel had already been sunk, lost in one of the biggest battles off of the Solomon Islands. Sorry, Hitler, didn't work out that way. The Wisconsin Class A plate steel. Did we cover that? Did you cover that? That it was 12 and 1/8 inches thick in most places, but as much as 17 inches on the turrets.
No.
Yeah, the most part it was about 12 and 1/8 inches thick, but around the gun turrets it was 17 inches. That's some heavy duty plating. It retired after the Gulf War. So what we read there was actually the case. She did host some high-profile guests. Let me increase this 1 second, folks. I'm having some issues reading it, so give me just a moment. There we go. Film and television stars were among those who, son of a gun, there we go, came on board the Wisconsin during the service to the fleet. Movie actress Anne Blythe visited the Wisconsin on April 13th, 1952. And it was an Easter Sunday while the ship was at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Just over 3 years later, on May 22nd, 1955, the Ed Sullivan Show broadcasted the Toast of the Town segment from the Wisconsin. Docking then in New York Harbor, show host Ed Sullivan, singer an actor of stage and screen, radio, and television. Burl Ives and singer and television personality June Valley were among the contributors to that show. Many years later, on October 20th, 1990, actor, comedian, and musician Steve Martin and his wife, actress Victoria Tennant, visited the ship for a meet and greet and tour sponsored by the U.S.O. So she was even part of the U.S.O., ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't just Bob Hope or Bing Crosby. Did you have anything else, love?
No.
So that pretty much wraps up our
research
of the U.S.S. Wisconsin. The unsinkable Bismarck. Yep. I remember them saying something about that. It's a really big show. He's doing.
Yeah.
Ed Sullivan.
Yeah.
Well done, Mac. Well done. It's a really big show, folks. A really big show indeed. Yep. I believe he was also the first to have the Beatles on his show.
At least on this side of the
pond. This side of the water, yeah. On this side of the pond, as they say. So for next week, babe, what would you like to?
Well, our list at this point has the U.S.S. Virginia, the Indian Wars, female gunslingers, female gangsters, our U.S. History Trivia Night, and the World War II Plane Museum in Punga.
I think we should let's do the history night, or the trivia history next week.
I have no clue how to go about setting that up.
Excuse me, folks, I have a little gray cat that was trying to step on the
keyboard. I know, but no, you can't get on Debbie's
all
keyboard.
So do you want to do that week after next and go with, say, female gunslingers next week?
Well, being that we did a ship tonight, do you want to do a series of 2 ships?
No, I want to take a break between the ships, I think.
So you want to do the gunslingers?
Yeah. We can, or would you rather do the gangsters?
I'm fine either way. I know you're going. Woman, make a run.
Yes, that's pretty much what I'm doing, ladies and gentlemen. If you saw my face right now, it's like, damn it, woman, make up your mind. Fine. If I
make a decision.
If I have to make the decision,
gangsters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Female gangsters. Yeah. Do we have a time period we want to cover?
No.
So you want to do female gangsters across all of U.S. history?
Well, the only thing is if we do prohibition, we're going to end up we can't do prohibition.
We can do prohibition.
We're going to end up getting the same ones we've already got.
Okay. All right. I say we do. Well, I think we include prohibition, but we go
with a worm
into the 60s.
Okay. So 20s to 60s?
20s to 60s. It was a really big shoe. Yep. So we're going to cover basically 4 decades of female gangsters. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. 5. Okay. Drink. Drinking Capone's bar Independence, Virginia? Really? Huh. I didn't know there was a Capone's bar in Independence.
Was it just named for him and
I
themed,
don't
or
know.
was he supposed to actually have done something there? Young lady, I can't.
Or is it
let you
owned by
go.
some of the family? That's a good question. So we're going to do
Here,
20s to the 60s
20s through the 60s.
female gangsters. Okay. With that being said, we'll have to discuss later, but we'll split it up. You do one decade, then I'll do another decade, and you do a decade. We'll split up the decades. Otherwise, I think that's just going to be a lot of information.
Okay, well, we're going to end up with one decade that we share.
The 60s.
Okay.
I would say we share the 60s. But we can discuss that off air.
Okay.
Well, Mac, I personally appreciate you being here. I don't know who the lurker in the lurker loft is, but thank you as well.
Are you sure it's not just him and I?
It could be you and him. Now, remember, Mac, it's your job tonight to clean the chalkboards.
Don't forget to pound the erasers.
Yeah, you got to make sure you pound the erasers too. It was moved there. Okay. The original wood bar. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. I did not know that. You taught me something about Virginia. Go ahead. I didn't have any clue. Double hearts and a thumbs up. Yep. All right, so that concludes the show for tonight. Mac, take care of yourselves, and anybody who catches this on the rewind, please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see y'all next week at 8 o'clock on Wednesday to discuss female gangsters of the
20s through 60s.
20s through the 60s. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Have fun storming the castle.